great having you on this platform and everything like that. Just, UFL 5 coming up. And I like the theme of the card too, with it being like a Phoenix versus August
Yeah.
card and just you captaining against Henry Cejudo. I mean, you really have represented Nevada well. I mean, you're in the Southern Nevada Sports Hall of Fame, so it makes sense in a lot of ways.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'm really actually this is what my wife was always the one telling me these things. I don't know them. I found out recently that I'm the only homegrown UFC champion that actually came from Vegas. Not that we don't have guys that have moved here and won titles, but I'm the only one that actually was born, raised, and went all the way through and won a UFC title.
Oh, that's really cool. I mean, just even adding more to that dynamic there, just with you helming this team. And yeah, I just love the dynamics here, just the winning team winning, that 50 grand. And then I kind of like the point system or that's set in place rather and instantiated for the whole thing and whatnot. And just the main event title fight having like even more points at stake. So just kind of a cool thing to be a part of. It kind of has that, like, I guess, team sports ish kind of dynamic, like just in terms of like the respective points allocated to like which round the opponent gets finished in, if it's a decision, etc.
Well, have you ever watched the first one we did, the Freedom Fight Nights, which was kind of the first fight card that Harrison and I put together, and it had Quentin versus Tito on it, and that was my original idea with this whole concept. Anyways, was a team type sport because I looked at combat sports and like, look, the UFC is a UFC. No one's going to beat the UFC at the UFC. It's like someone trying to come out and think that they're going to start a football league and beat the NFL. They are what they are. But can you find a niche in another area that you can kind of reside in? And look, Legacy kind of has the feeder league niche going. We're the main distributor to the UFC gateway, right? And then the PFL, they did the tournament, right? Great concept on their part. It's like, wow, that's interesting. You fight through a whole year, whoever wins most points, or a tournament concept. But then I thought, like, wow, there's no camaraderie. There's no loyalty to anybody has. I mean, once you like a fighter, you like a fighter, but there's no like a city versus city like you have in other sports. The only way I thought that the only combat sport that I've ever seen that has that is collegiate wrestling. If you look at college wrestling, you get Penn versus Iowa or Minnesota, and all these colleges come in Ohio. You fill up stadiums. The Carver Stadium, I think sits like 60,000 people, and they sell out to watch wrestling. It doesn't matter if your wrestler that you follow goes through and leaves. You have alumni and people that are fans of the team. They still show up. So that's where the team aspect came through of wanting to have a team. And the point system, I got directly thinking about wrestling. It's like, all right, well, in college wrestling, yes, it's an individual duel. When you step on the mat, you want to win. But how you win can affect the team. And then sometimes going out there against a guy who's better than you. I mean, I've seen it many times. You get a guy, you step up and fill a weight class because you're too light, but we're missing a weight class. So instead of giving up the full loss of points that we would get with a forfeit, like giving up 6, you have got coaches telling the guy, hey, man, I need you to step in this place. And if you win, great. I just need you not to lose by 10. You know what I mean? You got to keep it close so we don't give up so many points to the other team. So there's that strategy, too, of camaraderie, of trying to figure things out and step in. And guy going there facing somebody who's much better than them, but being a hero about it. So that was what I saw in college wrestling that they had going for them that I thought could add. Wow. And then to Harrison's point was bringing up, well, how do we divide up these teams? I really didn't have an idea at that time. And the city idea was like, okay, well, just like, because he's a huge fan of basketball. In fact, when we first met, his ambitions was to buy the Phoenix Suns. And so when we switched gears, went into fighting, now he's thinking, like Phoenix can have its own fight team. Vegas can have its own fight team. LA can have its own fight team. Florida, I don't know, Miami can have their own fight team. And I was like, oh, there you go. That's super interesting, and so we're still now in the trial stages of this because as you see, most of our guys are very similar weight classes we place. Eventually, I want to make it to where we have to have a full card, kind of like the IFL used to do, where you had, a 35, 45, 55, 70, 85 pound representative. And if you didn't fill that with a person, you gave up a full forfeit. So now you're trying to stuff somebody in there to, like who's your second place guy, who's your third string guy to jump in there, or girl, to help make sure you mitigate that point loss. So that way it's kind of cool. Like I think even too as a fan, as you're watching, you can see, well, why are they putting so-and-so in? Well, so-and-so got hurt. Well, what's this going to happen? Or even styles sometimes. I've seen certain matchups where amongst 3 guys, we've seen it many times, A, B, and C. A can beat B, B can beat C, C can beat A, just because the styles that they pose, even though it's like, well, wait a minute, he can beat him, but he can't beat him, but he can beat him. I'm like, I know, man, it's crazy. Just styles make fights.
Yeah, and even like I guess just going like beyond what's taking place in the body of the fights, which are obviously very exciting for sure, but just like the ambitious pay structure dynamics, and as far as like it kind of largely being anomalous in MMA, unfortunately, with medical insurance and just like really being there in a comprehensive financial way for the fighters in a consistent manner. So I love that too, because I feel like a lot of people talk about that kind of stuff, but making, I guess, actionable effort to do that. Love to see it.
To other people's defense, if Harrison wasn't as well off as he is and as business savvy, we couldn't do it either. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people go out there, well, pay the fighters more. I'm like, at the beginning, you can't. At the very beginning, the middle of a career of a promotion, it's very difficult. They're not getting the eyes, the viewership. So, you know, everybody thinks, you know, the UFC, you know, it's like, guys, UFC's, you know, that started in 93. The Fertitas took over in 2001. They were $40 million in debt up until 2004. You know, they did other things. I mean, they've been at it a long time to establish who they are. We're not even close to that. We're not even in the same dream, you know, the same ballpark. And so, but then Harrison, through his just really entrepreneurship genius, will start a drink. I was like, what? He goes, we're going to start up an F3 drink, an energy drink, and that's going to help us subsidize the fight league. He goes, then we have a place to advertise it, and all these ideas he had with the F3 drink. And now that thing, I just went to the one of the facilities that does all the canning. You know, we've got 3 million cans. They're already sold out. I have friends that are like trying to get the can. I'm like, holy shit, this guy just, you know, he figures things out in a way that, like, sometimes when Harrison talks to me, I got to be honest with you, sometimes I'm like, fuck, I don't know, man. I don't think that's going to work. And then 6 months later, I'm sitting there staring at 3 million cans. I'm like, all right, I was wrong. Very glad I was wrong. But, you know, I didn't see that happening, you know. I was, as you say, doubtful. But that is to make it to where, you know, it did start out with us sitting there, you know, what do we don't like about the league? And a lot of fighters, when we first start out, we're at the end of our career, there's no point on going back and fixing anything. It's like, you know, humans were selfish. Well, how does that do anything with me? Our fighters having insurance doesn't help me out. Us changing the pay scale of these guys getting paid more appropriately to what they're putting out there doesn't help me out. So I can see why a lot of other guys that are you know, retired from the sport, that are legends of the sport, might not necessarily invest back into it. My children in there, you know what I mean? My daughter is trailblazing. So, like, one, I do have compassion, would like to help out. I mean, it's one of those things like, well, if I got cancer, I can still teach someone else from getting cancer. I know it doesn't help me directly, but if it does help somebody else out, I sleep better at night. So I sleep better at night knowing these guys are better off than I am, than I was at that point in my career. You know, scared to death of, you know, getting sick or getting hurt during training, knowing that that I better fake it and go fight. You know, that was one thing I talked to Harrison about. But not, you know, even on the selfish side, it really helps us out than having insurance, because in the past, fighters get hurt, they take fights from sitting there, why did that guy take that fight? Why did he do that? I'm like, because he tore his knee and he knew the only way he was going to get surgery is if he hurt it during the fight. You know what I mean? So then they show up and we get a sub curve. And then maybe had he had the ability to, you know, 10 weeks before to just go to the doctor and have it looked at, maybe it was just an injection. Maybe it was just a, hey, stay off of it, wear this wrap, do this, you know, PT. Maybe there was some way to circumvent the injury becoming full blown instead of him training all the way up to the fight with it, you know, and us now having to have full blown surgery, because there was no, hey, don't talk about it, because if you go to the doctor about this, it's on paper and you're not going to have the insurance pay for it in the fight. So having the guys have insurance was just, it's an incredible move for the fighters. It's actually for their own safety. They now don't fight. There's no reason for them, once they're under contract, to take a fight injured, because that's the only way they're going to get their injury looked at or taken care of. And as all people know, preventative medicine is way greater than fixing it when it's full blown. Now with that, they can go to the doctor with the first signs of an injury. Hey man, this just doesn't feel right. All right, well, go get it checked out, man, you know? And now they can, you know, maybe prevent this issue from ever being the problem that it is.
Yeah, and I guess that's why you kind of see just certain things in the landscape nowadays. Like, not that this is necessarily new, because it's been going on for roughly a decade now, but that antitrust lawsuit with the UFC that technically is a couple antitrust lawsuits that are almost amalgamated at this point, and just that update of the judge denying that initial settlement, and then it looks like they have like a tentative trial date for like late October there, from what I've been seeing. Like, what are your thoughts on all of that, if you've been kind of following that situation at all?
Well, a little bit. I mean, the one issue I do have, and that's one thing also too that I made sure Harrison understood, like, if they're an independent contractor, they can go look for work in other places. You know what I mean? Like, because that's really the term. You know, can you imagine I'm an independent contractor, I'm a handyman. I come work on your house. And you're like, okay, cool. Until I have work for you, you're not allowed to go work anywhere else. What do you mean? I can't work over here. I mean, I understand I can give priority to your house. And if your house has something to build, I'll come over and I'll fix it. But if you don't have work for me for 3 months, 6 months, and somebody else has work for me, I can't go over there and work for them? No. That doesn't sound like an independent contractor to me. I don't know. That does not. And that's how the UFC and almost all fight leagues have ran, is that once you're signed with the UFC, once you're signed with the league, you are held to that league and you can't search for any kind of income anywhere else. I think that's ridiculous. I just don't see that. That's a one-sided agreement. I mean, it's to their betterment that they don't have to worry about you getting hurt somewhere else, I guess, or ruining your whatever, but it only helps them out and it hurts you. And unless you're paying me on top of what I get to pay to fight, I'm an independent contractor. I get paid when I show up to fight for you. So you don't think that can be weaponized very easily? Oh, hey, we want you to take this fight. No, I don't like that fight. All right, cool. We'll see if we can get back to you in about a year or two while you're still under contract and see if we got something else for you. Could I go fight somewhere else? Nope. Okay. I mean, that seems like so that's why I mentioned to Harrison right at the bat. I'm like, hey, if we're 6 weeks, 8 weeks from a fight that you're scheduled to be on, then yeah, no. I don't want you taking a fight somewhere else. But once if it's not in that time frame, if it's, like, for example, if one of our fighters is not on this card coming up, August 30th, I don't know when our next card is. He calls us up and goes, hey, man, I got an opportunity to go fight over in Poland, KSW. Okay, cool, man. Hey, awesome. Let us know when the date is we can watch. Why would I tell him no, that he can't? Is there a chance that he might be getting hurt? Yeah. We're trying to get hurt in practice. But that's how fighters, especially now at that middle stage of fighting, that's how they make their money. And I'm going to go ahead and tell him he can't. But then I feel like I have a greater obligation to that fighter. Then they say, all right, well, I pay him when he fights, but when he's not fighting, I don't have to pay him. That just doesn't sit well with me. And I think that's the biggest issue that I see there. People talk about pay scales and all this and what you're worth, what you're not. I think that really starts getting into the finer details of what a person's worth. People watching you, how much is that the promotion helping you be watched? How much is that actually you? Then if you were just to go start your own fight somewhere else, you're right. Those are all very hard arguments to have. But that ownership of being locked up, that's the part I've always had a problem with. And I'm glad that maybe that could be eliminated now in the future, make it official that, hey, independent contractors, unless they have a fight where we do a bout agreement is on record, I get it. If I have a bout agreement with you guys, I'm fighting in 6 weeks, I'm not going to take a fight somewhere else. But if I'm sitting on my ass for 8 months, how am I getting paid? How am I feeding my family, my children? And then, okay, well, then I won't train. I'll get a regular job. Well, then, all right, now you have a fighter who's not really a professional. He's a guy who fights after he goes to work for 40 hours.
Yeah, and it creates certain situations, too, like what we had seen with, Francis Ngannou leaving the company as the reigning heavyweight champion in the UFC. And I've kind of been thinking about it lately, too, because he obviously has that training connectivity to Extreme Couture. And that was something Randy Couture did not once, but, multiple times, just to really get out there and test what it means to be a free agent and get what you find to be, I guess, a commensurate purse at the end of the day. But I think sometimes the, thought fighters seem to have with that is that perhaps they'll, get their legacy erased in a certain regards, like the people that just follow the UFC product. You kind of, well, not kind of, you did see that with Randy Couture, and it seems like that's the case recently with Francis Ngannou, which I'd seen Israel Adesanya over the weekend talk about how you can never truly erase history and kind of addressed that. What are your thoughts on how the UFC has treated Francis Ngannou since leaving the promotional fold?
I think the situation was handled poorly. They already had the blueprint to handle it the same way they handled it with Conor and Mayweather. I don't know why they didn't do the same thing. They sit there and go, okay, right now Francis is, a highly regarded combat athlete. He's our champion. They're talking about doing a boxing match with him versus, at the time, a Tyson Fury type fight. Cool, co-promotion. Let's work it together like they did, let Francis keep the lion's share of the income. The UFC is not going to, they're not going to lose, change their lifestyle if they don't make out, millions off of this fight. It's like, just be a part of it, show good camaraderie. It shows, to me, the loyalty then to the fighters, it shows such a high level. I really think the ball was dropped there. I don't know why it was like, hey, Francis, you're our champ. We want to keep you as our champion. If you want to do this one-off boxing in between your title, fights, we'll help. we'll help facilitate it. You know what I mean? Like, we'll make sure with our lawyers you don't get screwed on the contract, that you get what you deserve when you walk out there and you're fighting. You know what I mean? Like, we watch you, you're our guy. Let's make this a team thing. You know, there's us, you know, the MMA guy, UFC guy going out to a boxing match. He's a professional boxing champion. Why not? You know, look how well he did.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And I think like, I mean, your story obviously was different in terms of like the details and stuff like that, but I think even similar in a sense, in as far as like, I think a lot of people were shocked to find that the Kubrat Pulev payout you had was like, I think it was more than your Brock Lesnar fight at UFC 100. And like, there's a part of me where I'm like, oh, that's great that you're able to, you know, get these bigger purses at, you know, later points in your combative career. But it just doesn't seem commensurate, I guess. Like the fact that a lot of the articles I was reading and the excerpts, it was saying you didn't even crack into that 7-figure range, which, like,
Oh
considering
no.
the magnitude of that fight, was kind of wild to me.
Yeah, that's why I've always in the past. I mean, again, you know, I've had questions about that, just because I'm not a businessman. But if our pay per view sold for $50 a pay per view, and we sold over 1 million, and other people that have done equivalent to that and sold less and they make more, like significantly more, I'm like, how does that work out? Like, give me the math. Because we're not talking about the amount of money. I'm talking percentages of money. I'm like, why was my percentage so much smaller than, let's say, a boxer's percentage was? What's the difference with MMA? Like, do we have extra people involved with promotion? Like, do they have less hands? I don't know. And that's the part I was always interested in finding out myself. I'm like, well, like, just explain it to me. You know what I mean? Like, I think transparency, I think, helps everybody. You know, I can be very angry at you about something, but if you sit there and explain it to me and you're transparent about, well, this is why, this is how this is happening, I get it. I'm not an ignorant individual, or I guess in this situation, I'm not ignorant, but I'm not stupid. If whether it behooves me or not, if I can get it, if I can understand why, makes sense to me. It's like, well, why'd you crash into my house? It's like, well, this dog ran out in front of me and I swerved over and I hit the sidewalk. Okay, I'm not happy about it, but it makes sense. If you just sit there and drive into my house and you say, fuck you, walk off on me, I'm like, whoa, now I'm not very happy about the situation. Now you got something, now you created an enemy. But all you had to do was transparency. Be transparent about your actions. If you're transparent, I think people have a better understanding. I think that not knowing, I mean, hell, I think that's humans' greatest fear. I think we're scared of the dark. Why? Because we don't know. Ignorance is such a fear of humans. That's not knowing what's going on. That's why, look, I always make a joke about that. Like, the horror movies are the best. You don't even see the monster till about the end of the movie. You know, Jaws. Why was it so scary? I didn't even see the shark. Once I did, it's actually kind of funny looking. You know what I mean? They'd have showed that thing at the beginning of the movie, I wouldn't have been so scared. But that not knowing, that not, you know, then my brain's playing tricks on me. Like, well, what could it be? What is it? You know, what's going on? And so I think it's that way in business. I just want to have better transparency. And that's one thing that, now that I'm on the other side of the fence, that I would like to always bring and go, hey guys, you know what I mean? Like, this is the transparency to what we're doing. You know, if you don't like it, at least you can understand it, which then you can, I think, you know, I can always get along much better once I get something. If you give me orders to go and run a hill, I'm not very happy about it. But if you explain to me why and why the big picture of this fits in, all right, man, I'll charge the hill.
Yeah, and it even kind of came through, like, I mean, we've been talking about like what the UFL is trying to put into practice to help give fighters those, I guess, like residual financial protections and to be mindful of their health. Like, that even came across to me when I'd seen an article circa early last year where it seemed like it affected you to a pronounced degree, that your former opponent, who you had captured the heavyweight title from in the UFC initially, Tim Sylvia, was still involved in slap fighting, even though
Yeah.
he couldn't get like that medical clearance even to, I guess, make an MMA return a bit previous to that. Like, it's just, yeah, it's a sad state of affairs to see stuff like that. Like, someone who shared the octagon with you and was a former heavyweight champion in his own right and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a sad story we see in all sports, when somebody who's made okay money, but then when you sit there, I don't feel as bad when someone has the full amount of money maybe that was due to them. When you feel that someone got shortchanged, and now they can't even afford the $10,000 it takes to take the bolts out of their arm, you know, for surgery, for an injury they incurred that helped the sport out, that is disheartening. And that's the other thing too that I like about the fact that our company now, you know, giving shares, there has to be transparency. Now the questions have to be asked and they have to be answered, you know, because now you're not just somebody who's being paid by the company as an independent contractor. You're actually part of the company. You're actually on us. That's why I came up with the phrase, not fight for us, fight with us. You know, like, let's be on the same team. That kind of gives that mentality that like it's not us versus you, it's us together. And it's just like anything else, like an army. I was actually having this conversation with my daughter. I believe in horizontal management. You know, I don't believe in a vertical. Meaning that the general is no better than a private, because hey, if there's no privates in war, that general ain't doing shit. You know what I mean? Like, we just have different jobs. Harrison's job's not more important than Brian's, or Brian's not more important than mine. Mine's not more important than Quinn. The fighters out there on the stage that are fighting, their jobs not less or more. We're all take one of those pieces out of the equation, and we have problems. You know what I mean? Like, this ain't gonna work. So that being said, like, it's like us working together, and that's the mindset that I would like to really make sure that we know. That's like, we're not here to take advantage of anybody. We're here to be as transparent as possible and go, hey, let's just make the sport a better world. Let's give other people opportunity to fight and be able to have and give back to their loved ones and friends and family and be taken care of because of fighting. Because at the end of the day, look how many people go to jiu-jitsu tournaments that are full-blown jobs, but they're out there competing. And they're paying $120 up, to go there and compete. They're not even thinking about money. So that urge to compete and test yourself is human nature. We want to do that. All these people that are fighting on August 30th, if I told them they were fighting for free and there's no money, they'd fight. So would I have. The only reason why I want to get paid, why they get paid, is like the people around you, that you sacrifice time from, that you're not spending with, that you're off at the gym training, you're doing things. It helps, I think, soothe their anguish. It's like, hey, I know this is a very selfish thing. This is about me fighting and pushing myself, but here, for what I take away, what I could add back into your life. You know what I mean? Like, here you go. Now the house is paid off in the next 6 months, or whatever the case may be. Here, we're taking care of you financially to help out, the loved ones, and that's really what that's about. And that's another reason why I don't ever want to make it to take advantage of the fighters. Because in my mind, I know you're not taking advantage of the fighter. He likes to fight. You're taking advantage of all the people he takes care of.
That's a great way to put it. And I mean, you guys have clearly attracted some great fighters, especially, for this event, like Hunter Azure defending that bantamweight title against Vince Morales, Shaman Moraes on the card. So a lot going on in Chandler, Arizona for UFL 5 there on August 30th. It's looking like a great card for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Actually, that fight, I'm super excited about it. Both of them are vets from the UFC. Morales is extremely well-rounded and just has great mentality. And just, one thing I really like about Morales is that, like, a lot of things he didn't start off immediate success. He had to grind them out. I mean, his wrestling career didn't do well at the beginning of it. Pushed himself through to a state title. I think right now in the MMA, I think he's better now than he ever was in the UFC. I think that there was a lot of expectations on him, and now through leaving there, those expectations get off you. Sometimes it's a lot of stress being who people think, oh, you're going to be this great next star. That's what I'm always afraid of happening to my daughter. That I'm like, guys, it's just, yes, that pressure is going to be there. But I try to mitigate it through when I speak to her, that I'm not like, all right, this is what you're going to do. It's like, by my even taking it slow and being very humble in the fights that I take and pick, shows that I'm like, hey, look, there's no guarantees in this. It's just one step at a time. I think now Morales, Vince is just, I think he's really on stride doing well. And then Hunter Azure, though, I mean, on the other side, his last fight, I got to commentate. If I had not known better, I'd have thought he was a professional boxer. His hands were unreal. They're super on point. His first fight coming out of the UFC too, that was, really I think really a mental step that he overcame. Because here, how is it for a fighter when you first leave the UFC? It's like, all right, that's the pinnacle of the sport. And now I'm stepping down, which signifies that I'm on the downslope. That kind of can feed into you on all levels. It goes to your soul. It's like, all right, now I'm not going to be any better today than I was yesterday. Usually when guys go to the gym and they train, you have this mentality that, like, tomorrow I'll be better than I was today. I'm working on this upward trajectory. And then the UFC, when you leave it kind of represents this downward trajectory. Well, now I'm getting older and my skills are going to be becoming less and less, injuries. And for him to come out with that kind of performance, I think overcame that. It shows him in his mind, like, well, there might be a second life there. There might be your career. You can get better and do better. And he did that. He showcased that in stride.
Yeah, no, I totally agree for sure. And I know there was talk at one point about you and Bella sharing a card, like your send-off fight circa last August for UFL 3. Is that still something you would want to do at some point with the UFL?
I do, but Bella's college career is not easy to work with. But I kind of told her, I'm like, hey, look, Bella, to be honest, I've been doing well with a lot of physical therapy and training. My knees and elbows and shoulders, between stem cell, bioaccelerator, and all the different products I take, You know, it's doing well. I feel better, healthier now than I have in probably 15 years. I'm smart about how I train. I only spar once every 2 weeks at most. You know, all I like to do is drill now live, like all situational stuff. And so, you know, attacking these from a much more intelligent approach, I feel good. But I also got to be honest, I'm 45 years old. So I told Bella, like, hey, if we don't make this happen by next year, this ain't gonna happen, kid. You know what I mean? I like the idea,
Yeah.
but like, you know, I'm gonna be trying to do this at 50. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, like, I just also don't want to go out there and have people feel sorry for me and watch me walking out there like, oh man, look at this guy, and so you know, I'm doing the best I can to keep my health up for my own personal reasons. I'm, you know, right now I do a lot more coaching than I do fighting. I don't want to sit there and show my son a move and try to show him like, all right, hold on a second, okay, we'll go. Come on, can you step to the side a little bit? You know, I want to be able to sit there and go. You know, I just did that the other day. We were doing a drill. It was actually awesome. My son, Cage and Ronan and Bella and I were all in a group, top, bottom out, for people to be rolling in jiu-jitsu. And I really wanted to showcase doing the half guard. So I made sure we started with half guard. I just kept sweeping them and moving them over. And every time they tried to come up with an antidote, I showed them the cure, you know? And that way at the end, I said, okay, you guys want me to show you how to do that? And eyes wide open, yes. You know what I mean? Like, so I like coaching from the point that I can show you and do it to you, you know, than just sit there and go, hey, do what I say, but I can't really explain why. I mean, I'll explain why, but I wish I could show you. There's something different about the human mind that when it's done to you, that just makes it much easier to jump on board.
Yeah, no, totally hear you, man. And I super appreciate you making some time to talk with Sportskeeda MMA ahead of UFL 5 on August 30th, the day after my birthday. A little bit of a belated present there, but figured I'd give you the floor in case there was maybe like any kind of final parting thought you wanted to add as we're wrapping up here. I do appreciate the time, Frank.
Oh, hey, you know, the biggest way though, that if you like any kind of change in some aspects of the world, you see how we're doing with MMA. If you like what we're doing, buy the drink, F3 Energy on f3energy.com, and support the show. And really, that's what all the hard work that we're doing here, that's what they can do at home, is just spectate, watch.